Karen lived about an hour's drive from New York City with her daughter, Emily, from the time Emily was very young. She had grown accustomed to her mother's weekend excursions, the bustling streets, the dazzling lights of towering skyscrapers, the mix of car horns, laughter, and hurried footsteps of pedestrians weaving through the sidewalks. For Karen, these trips were never just recreational, they were lessons in life. She wanted Emily to learn independence, to pay attention to the world around her, and to immerse herself in the fast, vibrant rhythm of a major city. Every outing was meticulously planned. Over the years, Emily had internalized a set of unspoken rules that made their trips run smoothly. She always carried her own small backpack, packed with snacks, water, and a few items for entertainment. She managed her personal belongings responsibly, never wandered off alone, and stayed with the group. She prepared herself for stretches of walking that could last 45 minutes or longer. And, perhaps most importantly, she approached each adventure with joy and respect for her companions. While phones were allowed, Karen always encouraged Emily and her friends to engage with each other and the environment, playing little games, observing the city, and savoring each moment further than staring at screens. Today was a special day. Emily was turning 12. Excitement practically radiated from her, visible in the wide smiles and animated chatter as she dashed around the living room. She spoke non-stop about every detail of the day ahead, whom she wanted to invite, which streets she hoped to explore, the shops she wanted to visit, the restaurant she had chosen for dinner, and the show she had been anticipating for weeks. Nothing escaped her attention. She described the type of food she wanted to try, the corners of the city perfect for photos, the bookstores she loved, and the candy shops she could spend hours in. Karen sat nearby, smiling softly at her daughter's energy. Pride and a hint of anxiety mingled in her heart. Weekend trips were always full of joy, but they also carried challenges, especially when navigating a busy city with a group of children. She knew it would be a long day, filled with many steps and numerous moments requiring patience. Yet she also understood that these challenges were exactly the lessons she hoped Emily would absorb: self-management, patience with friends, and the simple but profound joys that could be discovered amidst the city's chaos. The house buzzed with energy. Emily repeatedly ran to the window, peering toward the highway that led into the city, imagining the towering skyscrapers, crowded streets, tempting eateries, and the laughter of her friends echoing alongside her own. Watching her, Karen thought to herself, today will be a day to remember. More than just fun, Emily will gain something invaluably: an appreciation for patience, adaptability, and the ability to truly savor every moment. Emily bounced around the living room, her eyes sparkling and a wide grin plastered across her face. Today was her 12th birthday, the day she had been dreaming about for weeks. But this birthday was different. For the first time, she had planned an entire day out in New York City with her friends. A whole day filled with exploration, laughter, and little adventures. And the anticipation made her heart race. Her two longtime best friends, Sophie and Olivia, had arrived early. Sophie was calm, methodical, and always prepared. She knew exactly how to pack her backpack, how to pace herself during a long day of walking, and how to follow the rules Karen had set for these trips. Stay with the group, never wander alone, carry your own snacks and water, and approach the day with focus and joy. Olivia, by contrast, was the spark of the group: boundless energy, insatiable curiosity, and a love for trying anything new. Yet, She was considerate, always aware of the group's pace and ready to adapt when needed. Karen watched them, smiling quietly. With Sophie and Olivia on board, she felt reassured. The day promised to be smooth, fun, and full of shared joy. But today there was a new face. Leah, a classmate Emily had recently become friends with. Leah arrived practically vibrating with excitement. She peppered questions at Emily before she even finished tying her shoes. Which bookstore first? Are we going to the candy shop? Can we take photos everywhere? And the show, will it start on time? Her eyes were bright and lively, her grin constant. But Leah wasn't quite prepared for a full day of city exploration. Her backpack was nearly empty, save for her phone. No water, no snacks. And it was clear that walking long distances and navigating a full day of activities was unfamiliar territory for her. Karen's eyes softened as she observed Leah, recognizing a new challenge, a lively, curious child, eager for adventure but unaccustomed to the structure and pace the others had learned to follow. Leah's mother, Jessica, had also been involved in planning the day. She had called Karen a few days ago, cheerful and enthusiastic, promising to remind Leah to pack her snacks, water, and other essentials. Jessica's voice bubbled with excitement, reflecting her joy at the thought of her daughter's adventure. Karen, though polite, quickly realized Jessica didn't fully grasp what the day would entail. Hours of walking between destinations, careful pacing, and the little rules that kept everyone safe and happy. Remaining calm, Karen gently reviewed the plan, emphasizing the importance of snacks, water, and staying with the group. Emily, meanwhile, was undeterred. The thought of a full day in the city, filled with her friends and new experiences, made her practically giddy. She darted around the living room, narrating every detail to Sophie and Olivia. First, the bookstore she loved, where she planned to browse shelves for hidden gems. Then the candy shop, where she could pick out a few treats. The street corners she wanted to photograph for memories. The carefully chosen restaurant for dinner. And finally, the show she had been anticipating for weeks. Each detail was described vividly, her hands gesturing as she spoke, her voice rising with excitement. The room buzzed with energy, each girl caught up in Emily's vision of the perfect day. Sophie and Olivia listened attentively, nodding occasionally, smiling, letting out the occasional giggle. Their excitement was tempered by composure. They were mentally preparing for the long day ahead. Leah, on the other hand, could hardly stay still. She jumped, spun around, and interjected her thoughts at every opportunity, suggesting alternate shops, adding her opinions about what to eat, and imagining herself in every moment Emily described. Karen recognized immediately that Leah, while full of enthusiasm, could make the day unpredictable if not carefully guided. The girls' chatter mingled with the sounds of the city from outside. Emily ran repeatedly to the window, peering down at the highway that led into the city. She imagined towering skyscrapers, bustling sidewalks, the laughter of friends echoing down the streets, and the small adventures waiting at every corner. Karen observed with a mix of pride and cautious anticipation. Today promised many steps, numerous decisions, and perhaps a few surprises, especially from Leah. Yet she also knew that, with guidance, patience, and clear expectations, Emily would learn lessons far beyond the joys of her birthday. Patience, empathy, teamwork, and problem-solving, all while savoring the excitement and wonder of the city. As breakfast wrapped up and backpacks were finally packed with Karen's reminders in mind, the group set off. Emily led the way, pointing out landmarks she had memorized from previous trips. Sophie stayed close, making sure everyone had water and snacks, and reminding Leia occasionally to sip and take small bites to conserve energy. Olivia bounced from spot to spot, marveling at every detail, yet always returning to check in with the group. Leia trailed slightly behind, fascinated by everything, occasionally exclaiming or asking rapid-fire questions, but gradually learning to keep pace as Karen gently guided her. Every street they walked down held a small adventure. Emily stopped at a corner bookstore, carefully examining the shelves for something unique. Leia eagerly tagged along, picking up a colorful notebook and showing it to the group. Sophie quietly made sure all purchases were bagged safely. Olivia flitted around, examining posters and decorations, her laughter ringing out as she recounted a funny detail she noticed on the ceiling. Karen watched all of them with a warm, protective gaze, ready to step in if needed, but letting the girls explore and take ownership of their experiences. The candy shop was next, and Emily's eyes lit up at the array of treats. Leia's excitement overflowed, and she practically skipped down the aisles. Karen reminded her gently to choose only a few things so she could carry them easily for the rest of the day. Emily carefully selected a few chocolates and gummies she had been saving for the perfect occasion, while Sophie and Olivia followed suit with thoughtful choices. Each girl learned to balance enthusiasm with consideration, and even Leia began to grasp the importance of pacing and preparation as the day unfolded. The restaurant dinner and the show rounded out their adventure. Emily's planning and energy created a rhythm that the group could follow. Sophie's organization kept things running smoothly. Olivia's curiosity kept the spirit lively, and Leia's exuberance, though initially challenging, added a fresh spark that made the day even more memorable by the time they returned home. The girls were tired but happy, carrying souvenirs, photos, and stories of small victories and discoveries. Karen looked at the four of them, sprawled across the living room floor, laughing and recounting favorite moments. A soft smile spread across her face. Today will be remembered, she thought, not just for Emily, but for all of them. And more importantly, they've all learned something about patience, friendship, and savoring every fleeting moment together. The small group left the house early in the morning, the sunlight spilling in through the windows and casting warm streaks across backpacks brimming with snacks, water bottles, and little trinkets carefully packed for the day. Emily practically bounced with excitement, her grin wide, her eyes sparkling like tiny stars. She peppered her mother with endless questions, her voice rising and falling with each thought. Are we stopping at the bookstore first? Is the candy shop still open? Can we take pictures in front of that building? What time is the show? Sophie and Olivia walked calmly beside her, listening attentively and occasionally letting out a giggle at Emily's exuberance. Their steady composure reflected years of weekend city excursions with Karen. They knew how to pace themselves, how to anticipate the flow of a long day, and how to follow the unspoken rules that made each trip smooth and enjoyable. Leia, the newcomer, was different. She carried only a small backpack with her phone and a few essentials or lack thereof. She kept her eyes glued to the screen, fidgeting with her things, and occasionally frowned. When Emily tried to pull her into the conversation, Leia shook her head, muttered a few words, and returned to scrolling. As the train began to move and the signal weakened, Leia let out a long sigh, muttering, "Ugh, there's nothing to do." Emily winced slightly but forced a smile. "Come play with us. The art'll be fun." Sophie and Olivia quickly joined in to lighten the mood. They started word games, storytelling chains, and little riddles, sometimes singing along with music on their phones to create an upbeat atmosphere. Leah remained quiet, only occasionally contributing a word or two, mostly staring at her phone. Karen stood nearby, quietly observing. She recognized how quickly Leah's initial excitement had soured simply because she wasn't prepared for the lack of constant connectivity or the continuous movement around the city. Karen took a deep breath and spoke softly to Leah. "We'll be there soon, and there's so much fun waiting for you." Leah shrugged and frowned slightly, but Karen stayed calm, knowing that today was more than just a day of funnet, was an opportunity for patience, empathy, and learning to navigate small frustrations as the train rolled along. The differences between the girls became clearer. Sophie and Olivia chatted and laughed, played games, and stayed engaged with Emily, who narrated every detail of the day: the bookstore, the candy shop, the restaurant, and the long-awaited show. Leah responded minimally, occasionally sighing, mumbling a short comment, or glancing at her phone. Karen felt a pang of both sympathy and worry for Leah, unfamiliar with the city routine, and for Emily, who might feel disappointed that her new friend wasn't fully participating. By the time the train approached the city, Leah began to voice more complaints. "Why is it taking so long? I want to get off and walk." Emily, ever the optimist, tried to reassure her. "We're almost there, Leah, and there's so much fun waiting for us." Leah only sighed, pressing her lips together. Sophie leaned toward Olivia, whispering, "I don't think Leah's used to this much walking." Olivia nodded knowingly, her eyes sympathetic. Karen continued to intervene quietly, handing Leah water, a small pastry, and occasionally resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Try playing with the others," she encouraged softly. "You might enjoy it." She also reminded Emily, "Be patient with your friend. Things will work out." Emily nodded, her eyes still shining, though tinged with a little disappointment that Leah hadn't yet joined in the fun. Once the train arrived at the station, Emily practically sprinted off, Sophie and Olivia close behind. Leah hesitated at first, but Karen gently guided her along. The moment they stepped onto the busy city streets, Emily's enthusiasm was contagious. She pointed out familiar landmarks and led the group toward the first stop, the bookstore inside the bookstore. Emily's eyes lit up as she scanned the shelves. Leah, after some hesitation, followed, her curiosity piqued by the colorful displays. Sophie and Olivia quietly browsed, occasionally whispering suggestions about which books to pick. Emily excitedly narrated which books she wanted to show them, occasionally pausing to explain why she loved certain stories. Leah picked up a bright notebook, showing it to the group with a shy smile. Slowly, she began to engage, her initial hesitation giving way to a tentative interest. From the bookstore, they wandered down familiar streets toward the candy shop. Emily eagerly pointed out her favorite treats, and Leah's eyes widened as she looked at the endless jars of colorful candies. Karen reminded her gently, "Pick just a few so you can carry them easily." Emily carefully chose chocolates and gummies. Sophie and Olivia selected theirs thoughtfully, and Leah finally made her own choices. Smiling at the small victory dot between stops, they played little games to pass the time, spotting certain signs, counting yellow taxis, or making up stories about people they saw on the streets. Leah began to join in quietly, occasionally laughing at Olivia's funny impressions or Emily's exaggerated storytelling. Karen noticed these small moments and smiled inwardly. Leah was slowly adapting to the group dynamic. Lunch came next at the restaurant Emily had chosen. She had planned it carefully, wanting a place with enough seating for all of them, a friendly atmosphere, and food everyone would enjoy. Emily led the group to a table. Sophie arranged their meals neatly. Olivia checked on everyone's preferences, and Leah, surprisingly, began to relax, choosing her own dish and even making small conversation with Emily about her choice. Karen observed quietly from a nearby table, proud of the progress Leah had made and encouraged by Emily's patience and leadership. After lunch, the group wandered through a nearby park, taking photos, running a bit on the grass, and enjoying small snacks. Emily ran ahead, pointing out the spots she wanted to photograph, while Sophie and Olivia followed at a careful pace. Leah initially trailed behind but began to notice the sights, the way the sunlight bounced off buildings, the movement of people in the park, and the sounds of the city around her. Occasionally, she laughed when Emily or Olivia made a joke, showing that her mood was beginning to lift. Finally, the group arrived at the theater for the show. Emily's excitement was palpable. She bounced slightly in place as they queued to enter. Leah's eyes widened as the theater lights bathed the room in color. For the first time that day, she truly seemed present, putting her phone aside to take in the sights and sounds. Sophie and Olivia exchanged happy smiles, and Karen felt a warm satisfaction knowing that the day's lessons, patience, engagement, and adaptability were paying off by the time they returned home in the evening. The girls were exhausted but exhilarated. Back in the living room, they recounted their favorite moments, laughed at funny incidents, and showed off small souvenirs. Leah smiled freely, a new spark of confidence and enjoyment evident in her demeanor. Emily, still buzzing with excitement, reflected on how much fun it had been to share her day with friends. Karen looked at all four girls sprawled across the room, their energy slowly settling into contented tiredness. Today was memorable, she thought. Not just for Emily, but for all of them. And more importantly, it was a lesson about patience, friendship, and appreciating every single moment along the way. The small group finally stepped off the train and into the busy streets of New York City. A light breeze carried the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee from the sidewalk cafes, mingling with the constant hum of the city honking taxis, chattering pedestrians, and the distant rumble of subway trains beneath the streets. Emily practically bounced in place, her bright eyes darting from building to building, her grin almost splitting her face. "Are we going to the bookstore first? Is that candy shop still open? Can we take pictures in front of that building over there?" she asked, her voice brimming with excitement. Sophie and Olivia walked close beside her, steady and observant, laughing at Emily's bursts of energy while also noting the small details around them, the street performers. The way a pigeon hopped along the curb, the gleam of sunlight on the windows of high-rise buildings. Their composure reflected years of guided city adventures, where they had learned to pace themselves and savor the little surprises that urban exploration offered Leah. The new girl immediately demonstrated her discomfort. Her small backpack contained little more than her phone, and her gaze was fixed on its screen as if it were her lifeline. Emily leaned toward her, trying to pull her into the conversation. "Leah, aren't you excited about the bookstore? Or the candy shop?" Leah only shook her head, muttered a few words under her breath, and returned to scrolling. As they walked down the bustling sidewalks, Leah groaned, "I'm so tired. Why is this taking forever? I want a taxi." Emily's smile faltered slightly, but she tried to remain encouraging. We're walking just a little be fun. There's so much to see on the way. Sophie added with a friendly nudge, come on, Leah, look around. There's so much to notice. Olivia chimed in, yeah, the city's full of little surprises, you just have to watch for them. But Leah trudged behind, shoulders slumped, frowning, sighing heavily. Their first stop was the bookstore. Emily's eyes practically sparkled as she pointed to the shelves bursting with colors, the rows of neatly stacked books, and the small displays featuring her favorite titles. Sophie carefully flipped through comic books, commenting quietly to Olivia about her favorites. Olivia eagerly shared thoughts aloud, narrating her impressions with dramatic flair. Leah stood at a corner, arms crossed or hands on her hips, occasionally muttering, boring. Nothing interesting here. When Emily asked if she wanted to try a book, Leah shrugged. Karen, observing quietly, noticed the deep weariness in Leah's eyes. She bent slightly toward Emily and whispered, be patient with her. Everything will be okay. After the bookstore, the group wandered to a small candy shop Emily loved. Colorful jars lined the shelves, and the sweet scent of sugar and chocolate filled the air. Emily excitedly pointed out her favorite candies, and Sophie and Olivia each sampled a few treats, giggling and sharing their favorites. Leah, however, barely glanced inside, shrugged, and muttered, I don't like any of this. Why is it taking so long? Karen drew a slow breath and stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Leah's shoulder. Do you want to sit for a moment? Have some water and a snack, then we can keep going. Leah shook her head, eyes distant, muttering, I'm bored. They continued walking through the city streets, navigating crosswalks and dodging the occasional cyclist. Emily skipped ahead, pointing out corners she wanted to photograph, street signs she found interesting, and murals she adored. Sophie followed steadily, taking careful steps to stay with the group while quietly observing details, like the patterns in the pavement and the window displays. Olivia bounced slightly, mimicking street performers they passed, making Emily laugh. Leah walked at a slower pace, her phone clutched in one hand, frowning, occasionally sighing. When it was time for dinner at the restaurant Emily had carefully selected, the group stepped inside and found a cozy corner table. The restaurant buzzed with conversation and clinking dishes, giving the girls something to watch and listen to. Emily eagerly scanned the menu, suggesting dishes to Sophie and Olivia, who were equally engaged. Leah sat quietly, occasionally shrugging, muttering, I just want to go home. Emily's shoulders slumped slightly. Sophie and Olivia exchanged concerned looks. Karen gently guided Leah to a quieter spot, placing a hand on her shoulder. Are you feeling okay? Tired? Need a break? Leah only shrugged, eyes wandering, saying softly, I'm bored. Karen kept her voice calm and patient. I understand, but today is Emily's birthday, and she really wants everyone to enjoy it together. Can you try to stick with us a little longer? Leah remained silent, shaking her head. Karen knew pushing her would backfire, so she turned to Emily and the others. Enjoy your dinner and the rest of the day. Leah will take her time adjusting. Don't let it ruin your fun. Emily nodded, a hint of disappointment shadowing her face, but forced a bright smile and held hands with Sophie and Olivia. Dinner passed with Emily and her friends, savoring each bite, laughing softly at small jokes and observations about the day. Leah remained quiet, occasionally sighing, occasionally scrolling her phone. Karen stayed close, offering water and small snacks, gently and softly reminding Leah everything will be fine. Soon, we'll head to the show you've been excited about. Leah did not respond, but her eyes started to glance at the faces around her, slowly catching the energy and excitement that Emily, Sophie, and Olivia radiated. After dinner, they strolled slowly toward the theater, the city's evening lights shimmering against the darkening sky. Emily practically skipped ahead, Sophie and Olivia followed with steady enthusiasm, and Leah walked more slowly, frowning but occasionally glancing at the bright lights and bustling streets. Karen observed all of them, feeling a quiet pride Emily's excitement hadn't faded. Sophie and Olivia were engaged and attentive, and Leah, although reluctant, was present, observing and gradually absorbing the city's energy. By the time they entered the theater, the girls were buzzing with anticipation. Emily's face glowed with joy, Leah's eyes widened at the lights and colors, and even a tentative smile appeared on her lips as she put her phone away. Sophie and Olivia whispered excitedly to each other, sharing their eagerness for the show. Karen let them settle, knowing that today's lessons in patience, engagement, and observation had already begun to take root. After the show, as they made their way back through the city streets, toward the train station, Leah's posture was more relaxed. She was quieter than the others, but occasionally commented on what she had enjoyed. The bookstore, a funny sign on the street, or the colorful lights of a shop window. Emily bounced beside her, Sophie and Olivia laughing softly at small incidents along the way, and Karen observed, quietly proud of the growth in patience and adaptability she had witnessed by the time they returned home. The group was tired but exhilarated. They settled in the living room, sharing snacks and recounting their favorite moments of the day. Leah, for the first time, smiled freely and engaged with the conversation, sharing small insights about what had caught her eye. Emily's energy was still high, recounting every exciting detail with enthusiasm. Sophie and Olivia chimed in, pointing out funny moments and surprises. Karen looked on, a deep sense of satisfaction washing over her. Today had been long, challenging, and full of small victories, she thought. It was memorable not just for Emily, but for all of them. And more importantly, it had been a lesson in patience, friendship, and savoring every single moment, even for someone like Leah, who needed time to adjust. The dinner plates had just been cleared away, leaving only half-finished glasses of soda, the faint aroma of grilled chicken, and the low hum of conversation around the restaurant. Golden pendant lights swayed slightly above the table, casting a soft glow across the group. It should have been the perfect pause before the evening's highlight. Instead, the air felt fragile, as if one wrong word could tip the mood into disappointment. Emily, however, hadn't noticed the tension yet. She was practically vibrating with energy, bouncing in her seat and gripping Sophie's and Olivia's hands as though she might burst from excitement. The show's going to be amazing, she gushed, her voice carrying over the clinking of cutlery nearby. I saw a clip online. They have lights that shoot across the whole stage, and there's this one part where, oh my gosh, you won't believe it. Her words tumbled over themselves, breathless and unstoppable. Her grin wide enough to light up the table. Sophie giggled, squeezing Emily's hand back. We're going to get such a good view. I bet we'll see every single thing, and maybe even some backstage stuff if we sit close enough, Olivia added with a grin. The three of them leaned together, their heads nearly touching, whispering and planning where to sit, how to record the best moments, and which snacks they'd get during intermission. Their laughter and chatter painted the picture of a perfect birthday evening. But then, buzz, the sound of Leah's phone vibrating on the table sliced through their joy like a sudden draft of cold air. Leah glanced at the screen, her brows furrowing before she pressed her lips into a thin line. She held the phone tightly, staring at it for a moment, and then her words came out quiet but heavy. "Mum, I want to go home early." For a beat, silence blanketed the table. Even the background chatter of the restaurant seemed to fade. Emily's smile faltered. She blinked, the sparkle in her eyes dimming as if someone had flipped a switch inside her. Her shoulders slumped, and in a voice that cracked with disappointment, she whispered to Sophie, "Does this mean my birthday's over already?" Sophie's face softened with uncertainty. She gave Emily's hand a sympathetic squeeze, but had no answer. Olivia glanced at Leah, her lips pressed together, torn between frustration at Leah's attitude and pity for her obvious unhappiness. Karen inhaled slowly, her chest rising and falling as she steadied herself. She recognized this moment for what it was, the crossroads she had been dreading all day. She reached for Leah's phone and dialed Jessica, Leah's mother. Jessica's cheerful voice floated through the speaker at first, light and supportive when Karen described the evening's plans. But as soon as Leah's wish to leave was mentioned, Jessica hesitated. Her tone shifted, laced with practicality and mild exasperation. "Oh, well, I can't come get her right now. It's too far, and honestly, I don't want to spend extra money on another train ticket. Maybe you can just figure something out." Karen's grip on the phone tightened. Her eyes flicked to Emily, whose hopeful gaze was glued to her. The decision weighed on her like a stone, to take Leah home and crush Emily's birthday dream, or to keep Leah there, risking that her attitude might drag down the night. She crouched slightly to Leah's level, her voice calm but edged with firmness. "Leah, do you really want to go home? We're about to see the Shomali's birthday surprise. She's been looking forward to this for weeks. Don't you want to at least try?" Leah's shoulders hunched, her eyes dropping to the phone in her hands. "I'm just bored," she muttered. The words carried no malice, only a tired bluntness that felt heavier than if she had shouted. Emily clutched her mother's arm, her voice trembling. "Mum, please don't leave me. Please stay. I want to see the show with you. I've been waiting for this all month." Her lower lip quivered, and for a second she looked far younger than her age, the disappointment cutting through her like a sharp blade. Karen pulled her daughter into a gentle hug, pressing a kiss to her hairline. "Sweetheart, I hear you, and I promise I won't let this ruin your birthday." Not today. Her mind raced. She could see Sophie's and Olivia's worried glances, Leah's sullen stare, and Emily's desperate plea all colliding in front of her. This was no longer just about logistics. It was about protecting joy in a fragile, fleeting moment of childhood. Lifting the phone again, Karen called Jessica back, her voice steady now, carrying quiet authority. "Jessica, I understand Leah wants to leave, but we're already here, and Emily's birthday depends on this. If Leah still wants to go home, then either her dad or another family member needs to meet us here. I can't take her back tonight without cancelling Emily's plans. Until someone arrives, I'll make sure Leah is safe." There was a pause, then a reluctant sigh on the other end. Jessica didn't like it, but she eventually agreed. Karen hung up, exhaling deeply. Leah's eyes flashed with a mixture of irritation and sadness. She didn't argue further, but her silence spoke volumes. She slouched in her chair, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve, her phone resting unused on the table. Emily's relief came like sunlight breaking through clouds. She threw her arms around her mother, hugging her tight. "You're staying." "Thank you, Mum. This is going to be the best birthday ever." Sophie and Olivia exchanged quiet smiles, their shoulders relaxing as they leaned closer to Emily, whispering encouragements. "It's going to be fine. The show's going to be amazing. Just wait." One of them cast a gentle look at Leah and added softly, "You might even like it." "Leah, you never know." Karen stood at the center of it, all one hand holding Emily's, the other resting lightly on Leah's shoulder. She could feel the tension and gratitude pulling her in two directions. But she also knew this: the choice had been made, and it was the right one. Outside the restaurant window, New York's evening streets glowed with energy. Neon lights flickered across wet pavement. A saxophone's melody drifted from a street performer at the corner, and the rhythm of footsteps matched the city's heartbeat. Karen let the sights and sounds ground her. Tonight wasn't just about enduring, it was about creating a memory that Emily would carry for years. Emily gazed up at her mother with renewed joy, her words spilling out again in a rush. "You're here with me. This birthday is so special I'll never forget it." Leah sat quietly, her eyes occasionally darting toward the window. Though she remained withdrawn, her posture shifted ever so slightly, as if the vibrancy of the city and the excitement around her were beginning to chip away at her wall of indifference. Sophie and Olivia, sensing an opening, started sharing small observations with her, funny things they noticed on the street, what they hoped the stage would look like. They didn't push, but their steady warmth created a soft landing space for Leah to exist without pressure. Karen knew the hardest part wasn't over. Leah might grumble again, and there would likely be more moments of strain. But she also knew Emily deserved her dream. Tonight would test her patience, but it would also affirm her love and her determination to protect her daughter's happiness. As she rose from the table, guiding the girls toward the glowing theater district ahead, Karen thought to herself, "This night will be remembered, not just for the show, but for what it teaches us: patience, love, and the courage to make the harder choice when it matters most." And with that, she tightened her grip on Emily's hand and stepped into the night, ready to face whatever came next. As the clock inched closer to showtime, headlights washed over the restaurant's front window. A yellow taxi slowed to a stop at the curb. The girls turned their heads in unison, and Leah, without a word, pushed back her chair. She gave a little shrug, her expression a mixture of boredom and quiet irritation. Before walking briskly toward the door, the back door of the cab swung open and out stepped Thomas, Leah's father. His suit jacket was slightly wrinkled, as if he had thrown it on in a hurry, and his smile carried more apology than joy. His eyes, though kind, held a flicker of concern as they landed on Karen. "Sorry for the trouble," he said, adjusting his tie as he walked toward her. His voice was warm but weary, the kind of tone parents used when they knew they were adding to someone else's burden. But she really wanted to go home. Karen met his gaze calmly, offering a soft smile that masked the exhaustion she felt. "It's all right," she replied, her voice even. "We were prepared for this. Thank you for coming to get her." Leah didn't wait for further conversation. She slipped into the taxi without so much as a goodbye, her small frame folding into the seat. She leaned forward, arms crossed, fingers gripping the edge of the cushion. Her eyes flickered toward the group still standing at the restaurant's doorway. Emily and her friends before darting away again, a silent display of sulking resistance. Emily's chest tightened. Her lips parted as she whispered, almost to herself, "Is my birthday really going to end like this?" Her voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and sorrow, her wide eyes shining with unshed tears, before the sadness could fully take root. Sophie quickly reached out, placing a steadying hand on Emily's shoulder. "Hey, don't worry," she said gently, her tone firm but comforting. "Maybe Leah just isn't used to this kind of outing yet. It doesn't mean the whole night is ruined." Olivia leaned in close, her voice lowered but full of conviction. "I promise you, Emily, tonight's still going to be special. We're all here for you. This is going to be a birthday you'll never forget." Her eyes sparkled with loyalty, a silent vow that Emily would not face the moment's sting alone. From the curb, the taxi door shut with a dull thud. Karen's gaze followed the car as it pulled away, her shoulders rising and falling with a slow exhale. Relief swept over her, mingled with a nagging tension she couldn't ignore. She knew Jessica Leah's mother wouldn't let the matter rest quietly. And sure enough, only moments later, Karen's phone buzzed. Jessica's words came quickly, edged with disapproval. She was already recounting the story to other parents, painting Karen as inflexible, too focused on Emily's fun to care about Leah's feelings. "You could have been more understanding," Jessica said sharply. "Leah wasn't comfortable. You should have brought her home sooner." Karen closed her eyes briefly, steadying herself. She had expected this, but the sting of judgment was real. Still, when she checked her messages later that evening, a wave of unexpected support had begun to ripple through their parent community. One parent, older and respected among the group, wrote, "If a child isn't sick or in danger, you can't cancel the whole evening just because they're bored or uncomfortable." Karen did the right thing. Another chimed in. Her patience was remarkable. And protecting Emily's birthday memory while still keeping Leah safe, that's the balance a good parent should aim for. Their words washed over Karen like a bomb. The tension in her chest loosened slightly. Yes, Jessica might be upset, and Leah might remain unhappy for now, but she hadn't failed. She had made the difficult choice, and she knew in her heart it was the right one. At the table, Emily turned back to her mother, slipping her small hand into Karen's and holding on tightly. Her voice was soft but steady, almost reverent. "Mum, you're amazing. I'll never forget this birthday." Karen's heart swelled at the words. She smiled, brushing a stray hair from Emily's forehead, and thought to herself that no amount of gossip or criticism could outweigh the joy in her daughter's eyes. Meanwhile, Sophie and Olivia, quick to restore the mood, began chatting again. They pointed out little details they'd noticed on the street outside the busker with the saxophone, the twinkling marquee lights announcing the evening's show, the smell of roasted peanuts wafting from a nearby cart. They laughed softly, pulling Emily back into their orbit of excitement. Across the city, the skyline was shifting into evening mode. The sun had dipped, leaving a gradient of amber fading into deep blue. Street lamps blinked awake, their golden glow spilling across slick pavement. The hum of traffic, the chatter of pedestrians, and the rhythm of footsteps created a living soundtrack around them. A reminder that life in New York never paused, not even for birthdays, not even for small dramas between families. Karen sat back for a moment, letting the sounds of the city fill her ears. In that instant of stillness, she felt clarity, patience, decisiveness, and compassion. Those were the tools that had carried her through the evening. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it had been enough. Her gaze shifted back to Emily, who was smiling now, her earlier tears forgotten, her eyes alight with anticipation for what was to come. Sophie and Olivia grinned beside her, their excitement spilling over, their laughter like sparks in the night. "Mum," Emily whispered again, her grip tightening on Karen's hand. "We got through it, didn't we?" Karen squeezed back, her voice steady, warm, and full of love. "Yes, sweetheart, we did, and tonight will be a memory we'll keep forever." The three girls exchanged looks of joy, ready to head toward the glowing theatre district. Even without Leah, even with the whispers that might follow, the night stretched ahead of them like a promise. Karen, watching her daughter's radiant smile, carried one final thought with her. Sometimes, doing the right thing doesn't mean being understood by everyone, but love, patience, and the courage to stand firm, those always leave a mark that lasts. And with that, she rose, guiding Emily, Sophie, and Olivia out into the vibrant evening. The city lights beckoned, the show awaited, and for Emily at least, the birthday was far from over. It was only just beginning. With Leah gone, collected by her father, and carried away in the back of the taxi, the air around the group lightened almost instantly. The tension that had followed them through dinner lifted, replaced by the gentle hum of excitement for what still lay ahead. Yet Karen remained still for a moment by the restaurant doorway, her gaze lingering on the street where the cab had disappeared into the traffic. Emily was at her side, her small hand wrapped tightly around her mother's. Her bright eyes shimmered in the glow of the city lights, a smile tugging at her lips despite the faint shadow of disappointment about her new friend. Sophie and Olivia, sensitive to Emily's emotions, leaned in, smiling warmly. They whispered reassurances, reminding Emily that perhaps Leah wasn't used to this kind of trip, that sometimes people just needed more time to adjust. Karen inhaled deeply, her chest rising and falling with the weight of her own reflection. The question surfaced in her mind: had she done the right thing? Should she have given in, taken Leah home early, spared herself the hassle, and avoided Jessica's criticism? It would have been easier in the short term, that was certain. Yet almost as quickly as the thought appeared, Karen dismissed it. She knew in her heart that if she had caved, Emily's special day would have been cut short, her birthday memory tarnished. Worse still, it would have sent the wrong message, not just to Leah, but to Emily and her friends, that complaining or refusing to cooperate was enough to derail carefully made plans. A slow smile spread across Karen's face, not triumphant but steady, rooted in quiet conviction. She understood now that her decision to stand firm caring for Leah while still protecting Emily's birthday had been the right balance. Emily looked up at her mother, eyes shining with relief and wonder. "Mum," she whispered, her voice hushed with awe, "I'll remember today forever. I learned how to prepare, to be patient, and to stick with the plan, right?" Karen bent down, pressed a kiss gently into her daughter's hair, and let her arms rest around her shoulders. Her heart swelled with warmth. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. Today wasn't just about celebrating your birthday. It was about learning how important it is to be ready, to be patient, and to respect the plan we made together." In that tender exchange, Karen felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't only Emily who had grown a little wiser that day. Karen herself had rediscovered the quiet strength of setting limits, of balancing compassion with firmness. Even Leah, though she might not have realized it yet, had been given a lesson of her own, the importance of adapting, of considering others, and of respecting the group's experience. Perhaps the lesson wouldn't take root immediately, but in time it would matter. The city around them buzzed with life. Warm, golden light spilled from the street lamps, painting the sidewalks in soft hues. Footsteps echoed across the pavement, mingling with laughter, car horns, and the occasional burst of music from a passing car radio. To Karen, it all sounded like a vibrant symphony of resilience, a reminder that life itself was an endless dance between challenges and joys. Patience and flexibility. What had begun as a stressful evening, Leah's complaints, Jessica's frustrated calls, the tense quiet at the dinner table, had ultimately unfolded into something richer, a day that tested them, taught them, and bound them closer together. Emily tightened her grip on her mother's hand as they stepped onto the busy sidewalk. Her face glowed with excitement again, the shadow of disappointment replaced by anticipation for the show they were about to see. She glanced up at Karen, her voice steady, soft, and overflowing with gratitude. "Mom, I'm so lucky to have you. Today has been amazing." Karen slowed her pace, letting Emily and her friends skip a few steps ahead. She watched them laugh, their heads close together, their faces illuminated by the neon signs above. Her heart brimmed with quiet pride. These moments, she realized, were more than just a birthday celebration. They were stepping stones, teaching Emily and her friends how to value preparation, patience, respect for boundaries, and the importance of keeping commitments. A smile spread across Karen's face as she followed behind, content in the knowledge that even in the midst of challenges, she had given her daughter something lasting, not just a happy 12th birthday, but a memory filled with lessons and love. She knew that the years ahead would bring more obstacles, bigger decisions, harder choices, moments when she would again be tempted to bend for the sake of convenience. But tonight was proof that patience, love, and firm resolve could shape an experience into something unforgettable. As the group turned a corner toward the glowing theater district, Emily glanced back at her mother one last time before the show. Her eyes sparkled with joy, her smile wide and free. "This was the best birthday ever," she said softly, as if sealing the memory into her heart. Karen opened her arms, and Emily rushed into them, hugging her tightly. In that embrace, Karen felt a truth settle deep within her, that this domesticity, imperfect yet full of love, would endure as one of those rare, unforgettable milestones. A day of joy, lessons, an unshakable connection. And so Emily's 12th birthday came to a close knot, just as a celebration of a child growing older, but as a story of patience, resilience, and the quiet, steady love of a mother who refused to let challenges overshadow the beauty of the moment.